Most people start looking for a job or planning their future career without a clear plan. I'm guilty of that at times in my earlier career, but what people end up doing is they update a resume, send it to a bunch of places, and they wait for somebody to answer. But on the back end, they're sitting there wondering about why the whole process feels stressful and why it's out of their control. Well, today we're going to talk about a better way of doing all this. Instead of guessing, we're going to use a simple system that helps you think clearly, take action, and stay in control of your next steps.
What makes this different isn't that it changes how you see the process. A lot of people struggle not because they are not smart or talented, but because they feel like everything is happening to them. They think the economy, online applications, employers have all the control. But when you follow a clear system, you stop feeling like you're just waiting around. You start making smarter choices and leading your own career search.
So we're going to break down some key ideas from the Sadler method. This is actually something for sales, but if you're looking for a job, you're technically selling yourself. So we're going to break this down in a way that makes sense for students who are getting into the job market. We will talk about mindset, daily habits, confidence, communication, interviews, networking, and how to handle setbacks without taking them personally.
You've ever felt unsure about your future, nervous about interviews, or confused about how to stand out? This episode's for you.
The broken handle is for informational purposes only. Nothing here is legal, financial, or career advice.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so here's a simple example. Let's imagine two students both want a summer job. One student says, I hope somebody hires me, and just fills out the online application and then just waits. Then the other student makes a list of local businesses, asks the teacher to review their resume, practices answering the interview questions, and then follows up with the employer after applying. The second student is not guaranteed a job. Nothing's guaranteed, but they are using a system. That is the difference we are talking about today.
You know what this sounds like to me is it sounds like somebody who has just started the job search versus somebody who's been doing it for months. Because I feel like when you first get into the job market and you're looking for work, you're like, oh, I'll just throw out some resumes. I'll get some bites back. No big deal, right? And then you go, and then you got the guy who's been looking for 3 or 4 months. This guy's like, he's looking for every edge. He's reaching out to all his resources, touching his friends in his networks, reaching out to company influencers, going to job markets. He's doing everything he can in his power. And this is why this example works for more than just jobs. It can be for applying to colleges, trying out a team, looking for a scholarship, joining a club, or preparing for a big presentation. The point is that a clear process lowers stress because you know what to do next. You're much more calmer and you have a better mindset going in.
Yeah, and I like how you said that it lowers stress. And that's a huge thing for people, how to manage stress, and you get better action, clearer thoughts. So a lot of students think having a plan means everything has to go perfectly too, but believe me, it does not. Been there, done that with things went sideways. So a plan just gives you something to return to when things go a little sideways.
Exactly. I would say it's like having directions on your phone. Yeah, you might hit traffic or you miss a turn, but the map helps you reroute instead of giving up. Let's start, JB. We're going to start off with the success triangle. This idea says success is not based on just one thing. It is not only how smart you are, what classes you take, or what you experience you already have. Success comes from 3 working things: your attitude, your behavior, and your technique. Now, I'm going to touch on all 3 of these very briefly, just to kind of give you an understanding of what they're like. But attitude, it's your mindset. This is how you think about yourself, your future, and the challenges in front of you. Behavior, this is your actions. This is what you actually do each day, like practicing, applying, asking questions, and following through. And then, to keep it brief, technique, your skills and methods. This includes how you communicate, how you prepare for interviews, how you network, and how you solve problems.
Yes, and if one of these pieces is missing, it's going to become much harder to succeed. You might have a good attitude, and for the most part, I heard things where the biggest thing of what anyone can do is control their attitude, right?
Yes.
But if you don't take those actions based on your proper attitude, nothing's going to change. It's just, hey, I changed my attitude but what did you do afterwards? You might work hard, but if you use the wrong approach, you may not get the result you were expecting. So the point is to build all 3 of these components, the attitude, the behavior, and the technique together.
Like on the side note of this, as far as the attitude goes, being in multiple interviews over the last few months, I feel like this is always brought up over and over and over again between employers that are hiring. They're always like, I can do a lot with a person with the right mindset and a positive outlook, right?
Yep.
Generally, they're basically saying, I need somebody with a good attitude. I need someone to come in with
Yeah.
a clean perspective and be able to do great things. How attitude and behavior work together. Because a lot of people are thinking attitude just means being in a good mood. No, it doesn't. It means having the right hindsight, the overview, like observability, like looking into people, working well with others, just carrying yourself with a good positive aura.
What's bigger than just feeling happy and positive? It's how you see yourself and what you believe is actually possible, what you can achieve. But attitude, again, by itself, it's not enough. You also have to have the behavior behind that. That means making a plan, practicing. Yes, a lot of practice, like Allen Iverson said many years ago.
Practice. It's not about a game.
All about
it's about
practice, right? Asking for help, which is huge. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. Sending the emails and then showing up on time and doing the work, even when you do not feel confident yet. So sometimes confidence comes after the action, not before it.
Let's make this real for students. Say you have a big interview for an internship and you're extremely nervous. A helpful attitude is not pretending you are fearless. A helpful attitude is saying, I can prepare for this. I can practice. I can learn from experience. Then behavior is actually doing the work, researching the organization, practicing with a friend. Pick out what you're going to wear and show up early.
That is exactly it. The research, the practice, picking out what to wear, showing up early. That's the behavior in action that you just described. So the other part, the third piece is technique. That means knowing how to answer questions clearly, how to introduce yourself properly, how to explain your experience. So for example, instead of saying, hey, I'm a hard worker, a stronger technique is saying, in my part-time job, I learned how to stay organized during busy shifts and help customers quickly. And we probably touched on it before, where if you can put numbers around that last statement, it makes it even stronger. So that gives the listener a real picture.
No, I think it's exactly to your point is being able to quantify, right? And I think getting out of the mindset of we did this, it's making yourself the hero in the conversation, right? And a lot of people would say that's boasting, right? Or you're arrogant. No, no, you're not. What you're doing is you're looking at your specific performance measurements, you're seeing where you were successful, and you're magnifying that to a potential employer.
You're explaining your actions. You actually did them, so get the credit for them.
Yeah. So if a student is listening and thinking, I do not have much experience yet, they are not out of the game. They're not even out of the game by a little. They just need to learn how to explain the experience that they do have. And I think a lot of times people have a problem explaining themselves to others because they don't think they do a lot. What they don't know is that they inherently carry a lot of leadership, things that people look out for just by doing their day-to-day.
Yeah, and I've had this conversation probably with my stepson a couple of times, but a class project, a team sport, any babysitting that you've done to help people out, say it's volunteer time, helping at home, working a few hours a week can all become examples if you connect them to the responsibility, the problem solving, communication, or teamwork.
It's interesting too, though. I think, and I mean, is this a far stretch, JB, do you think, for even people that are in the middle of their career, or even people at the end of their career, or even people that are getting into the retirement years, right? You often run into this where you feel like people it's like they don't want to sell themselves because they're afraid that they're over elaborating or potentially painting a picture that's not there. I think what I see a lot of the times is I just think people have been doing the same thing for so long and become so good at it that they don't even think about it being as if it's a complex or difficult job. What's your take?
I think part of it maybe is they don't want to come off as arrogant. They want to be humble. I just do this one thing. I understand you do this one thing, but there's a lot more to it. I was talking to one guy, he was doing plumbing and like the soldering and all that stuff. And I was like, dude, you're doing a damn good job. Those are clean. I was like, I couldn't do that. He's like, it's just this. It's not that big of a deal. I'm like, you have a lot of experience. I can literally look at what you're doing and see that's clean work. So pat yourself on the back and take the credit type thing.
Well, that goes back to our point of technique and attitude, right? Though, because you're looking at the technique, you can see the difference between a disciplined technique and a technique that's not disciplined, right? You immediately notice it right out the gate from the time that the person walks in. We'll use your plumber example. From the moment the dude walks in, you can see if he's wearing a uniform, if it's clean, if he's got his phone, if he's got his notepad, if he's got his tool set, and he has everything that he needs to do the job. And then he immediately starts by opening up his tool chest, grabbing the right tools, and there's no lag. There's no, I have to call somebody for help. I know exactly what I'm doing, right?
That's exactly how it went down too. And he was prior military, which is probably why he was so squared away.
I hate to tout horns here, but yeah, us
No
veterans,
offense,
we know how to carry it. But yes, no, but even to that point, then watching the person do what it is they do, and if they make it look so easy that you're like, I could probably do this, that's how you know they're gifted, or even they're
That,
talented for that
that is
matter. You're
true.
like, do you know what I mean? Because it's like, oh, that doesn't look hard. Then you try it, and you're like, oh my god, I just destroyed 2 toilets in my house. Like, why did I do that? This is a horrible idea, right? And then of
Yep.
course you call in the professional, he comes and does it in 15, and you broke it for like 4 days.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but anyway, I digress. I digress. You were going to mention one of the big challenges of learning and the differences between the two.
Yeah, so the one big challenge is the difference between who you are and what you do. Your
Yes.
identity is who you are as a person, like your values, your character, effort, and self worth. Your role is what you do, whether that's a student, an athlete, or student athlete for both, employee, volunteer, an intern, or a future worker. If one role changes or does not work out, that doesn't mean you failed.
This is this part is so hard for me because I feel like my identity is tied to so many of the roles that I do every day. Just
Hmm.
like being a father, or currently I'm working as a barista, right? So it's like that's how I associate when people ask me about myself. Those are my fallback items that I always discuss. But if you took both of those away, what would I be at the basis of who I am, right? I'd just be a guy, honestly, just a guy that's, going through the steps every day. And it's like, it's so weird to think of my identity without the actions that I carry every day. Like if I were a vegan, or if I were like somebody who was a cook, or if I was somebody who did carpentry, how do I remove those back and still have some sense of value, right? This is so important. How does knowing the difference between identity and role help someone deal with rejection? Like not getting a job, internship opportunities, right? Because the reason why I asked this question, JB, is because I've been a cybersecurity engineer for the last 25 years, and getting rejected day in and day out from jobs, right? How do I not let that bring me down? Or like, because it's like, I know I'm great at this job. I've literally done it for decades, right? So how do we not let that rejection take us down? What do you think?
It's really just separating those items. So when you separate who you are from what happened, that rejection should become easier to handle. If a job, an internship, some team or school says no, does not mean that you are not valuable. It just means that opportunity was not the right fit. And we've mentioned that a lot. So
Yes.
it just and might just only be the fit at that time. Those their requirements could change later on, 3 months, 6 months, a year from now. So maybe you get an opportunity in the future to come back to be the right fit. But also know that you may just need to adjust your approach. Maybe you didn't tell them the right information. But your worth as a person, regardless of what some company or anything else says, that's always going to stay the same. That should always be your guiding light, and no one change that.
No, there's a great example of this that I've heard recently, and I kind of like it actually. I've never heard it. This is through the Operation New Uniform, and this is the Sadler method that we're discussing. It comes from this course. I should have given a little bit of insight there. But one of the examples that they give in the course is they're talking about $100 bill. You have $100 bill, you pick it up, you crush it in your hand. You just have it and you wrinkle it up, right? You look at it and it just looks like a hot mess. Is the value still the same? Yeah, it's still a $100 bill, bro.
Yeah,
Now, if I take that $100 bill and I throw it in a bowl of Kool-Aid and I pull it back out, is it still a $100 bill?
still $100 bill.
Still a $100 bill, right? If I
Hmm.
take that and I bury it and I put it in a treasure box in the ground, and then I pull that box out and take that $100 bill out, it's still a $100 bill. Point being is, no matter how beat up, how scratched up, no matter how much, whatever life throws at you, inherently your value still carries. So you don't lose the $100 bill. The $100 bill value still stays, as should our value, regardless of whatever situation or whatever job we have, right? That connects to something called locus of control. In simple terms, it means asking, do I believe I have control over my choices, or do I believe everything is controlled by other people and outside events? Some people say nothing ever works out for me, and they never called, and there's nothing I can do about it. But that way of thinking keeps you stuck.
Yeah, and a stronger mindset is to focus on what you can control. You can't control how prepared you are. You can't control how many people you reach out to, and you can't control whether you ask for feedback, practice your answers, and keep showing up. You cannot control every result, but you can control your effort and your next move and your attitude.
Yes. And so that goes back to the locus of control, right? So you have your external locus of control and you have your internal locus of control. The one you're speaking to right now is internal. And this is one of the things that they workshop in this course as well, is they're trying to get you to understand that you have control over a lot of things. So you should never feel helpless based off the fact that it comes down to your attitude and your technique and your approach, right? So in essence, if you become a victim, and I hate to use that as the term, but that's really what it becomes, because you're looking around you and saying everything else is the reason why I'm failing, as opposed to me being the answer to why I should be succeeding, right?
Yep.
That's really what they're driving towards. So here's a perfect example. If you do poorly on a test, an external control reaction might be the teacher made it too hard, so there's nothing I can do. But an internal control reaction sounds like I did not prepare the way I needed to. I can ask questions, study differently, and use this to improve. That does not mean you blame yourself for everything. It means you look for the part that you actually can control.
Yeah, and that's a much healthier way to think, because it creates options, and it gives you some accountability of your own actions and your mindset. So if the only story is I'm bad at this, then you're just going to shut down. But if the story is my preparation did not work this time, then you can change that strategy and how you prepare.
Do you have any examples of this, JB, where you've applied, like where you felt like at a certain point you were like getting down on yourself and you're like, man, there's nothing I can do. And then where you were able to unspiral and then redirect, or as we say, correct the course of the ship?
Yeah, when I was trying to get back into management, I just had to say, I'm not able to prepare enough because I don't have the years of experience to actually meet the requirements that they're asking, even though I was motivated and really wanted to stay there. But guess what? Doesn't matter. The result kept failing. And I had to step back and rethink, okay, well, what do I need to do? And then looked at engineering jobs. And then once I started doing that and I scaled down from principal down to senior level, opportunities started showing up. And so I had to go, okay, now I could prepare better. I know this stuff inside and out, and everything improved. Once I had that realization and admitted to myself, I'm not going to be able to do the management right now. Maybe that comes later on. And I've been away too much from an individual contributor to be able to actually sit in those seats at the higher levels. But I've still got my baseline. I still know who I am. I know where I came from. I still was able to get progress and answer things better at that senior level.
So if I'm gathering what you're saying, it was really a matter of adjusting the way you perceive or you're thinking about where you should be, and then also the approach and the technique that you utilized to magnify those roles during those interviews.
Exactly.
Excellent. So you really did change the technique, and the attitude changed, and you were looking at it very differently and approaching it very differently.
Yep.
I think a lot of times that goes back to internal locus of control. That would definitely be saying, no, 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 no. I'm in control of this.
Yep.
I'm approaching this the wrong way. I need to change the specific job or title that I'm looking at. Maybe I need to look for one that's more suited to what I can achieve currently. And then, like you said, pivoting to that next point where you're like, once I get to this point, I can go ahead and I can address going up the ladder after I've got that experience underneath my belt.
Yeah, and I've climbed the ladder 20 billion times. It feels like I haven't had that many jobs as a joke. But if I did, then there's just something way wrong with me.
Well, no, I feel like we've had the rings broken out under our ladder many times, and we've glued them back together to get two steps back to get one step ahead. But at the end of the day, we keep climbing the ladder either way, right?
Duct tape and baling wire, my friend.
Well, I would say that is the big difference. One statement, as we kind of touched on, attacks your identity. The other gives you the next step. And we just kind of went through that. How do we practice this? And I know this is probably what a lot of people would ask. I would say start out by, let's just go through this step by step. Own your choices. Instead of saying, this is just happening to me, ask, what can I do next? The next step would be to control your actions. Make a plan, man. And we talked about this pre-show actually this week about making a plan. JB, you want to elaborate? You just started at a company. You don't have to release the name or anything. I know it's still early in the purview, but kind of give us an idea of what you did in your very first week of this job. I was super impressed by this, so I want to kind of magnify it.
So I had to make a career development plan, and I know that I want where I want to go. And I made that decision, like I just talked about, where I said no more management, starting in engineering, and I know that. So I wrote up the 5-year plan, explaining here's how I want to start. Here's all these certifications and things I want to do. Here's how I want to engage with the team. Here's how I want to engage with the people that sit in the current role that I want to get to at some point, like 5 years from now. And I presented that. And then I found an opportunity in one of the meetings where I was able to showcase my skill set for that higher level role, just in building that trust and building that rapport. So I'm finding these areas and ways to do that, but I'm not trying to take over everything. I'm saying, well, you talked about these two opportunities. Here's how I look at them. And they were ecstatic about it. And that's a week one impact.
I think there's no better way than to start at a place by kicking the doors in immediately. And this goes right into our next our third step, which is control your actions. It says make a plan, follow through, and focus on the steps that you can take today, right? You didn't wait for someone to give you an idea of what you should be doing. And that goes into our step 4, which is stop waiting for approval. It's good to ask for advice, but do not wait for everyone else to tell you that you are ready. In other words, you were like, nah, man, I'm ready for this role. I already know what I want to achieve. I'm going to tell you what to do. And then you got to keep pushing through that fear. So there's always going to be a sense of feeling nervous. It's normal. Do not let the nervousness stop you from taking that next step. And it sounds to me like you didn't let any of this happen. I literally feel like you were so ready for this job that you probably had this plan formulated weeks in advance.
Yeah.
That you had a framework that you already were like, all right, dude, once I get on the ground, I'm going to run. I'm going straight into run mode, right?
Yeah. And that's how I looked at it, as a rebuilding opportunity to expand my exposure to different areas. And then that meant my exposure would automatically align me to the future job I want. Easy.
Well, and to your point, I think that comes with experience, right? Because you've done this so many. I'm not trying to say it in a way like that's negative in the sense of you've changed jobs. What I am saying is that you've done this process. You've been basically pulled into companies so many different times in so many different ways, right? That you've developed a framework that works every single time to impress the brass right out the gate, right?
Yeah. And I didn't know about the Sadler method until just recently, and applying that from a sales perspective to everything in sales. So even though I did my development plan, I'm still selling that to management and everybody else to make sure that it aligns to their needs. So they could come back and provide feedback and say, here's the advice I'd provide to you on maybe we need to make these adjustments in your plan. That's fine. But I'm taking control of what I want, and people need to let go of that fear. It's okay to say, I want to do this. Yes. And then get that feedback and say, okay, I'll adjust my plan, but I still want to try to achieve this goal.
Well, no, to your point, and I'll give you a very good example of something that's like, because we both just started jobs recently. The job that I'm at currently it's interesting too, because as I see tasks that need to be done, I just do them, right? It's like, hey, is this broken? Okay, I'm going to fix that. Or hey, does this need to be clean? I'm going to clean that. Or hey, does this need to be laid out? I'm going to lay this out. Or hey, does this customer need me right now? Yes. And it's funny too, because immediately within a very short period of time, obviously my managers come back and they're just like, hey man, I noticed that you're very engaged with that customer. And it's like, well, that's the job we're here to do, right? 90% of what we do is integrating with the customer and ensuring they're getting the end state of what it is they want, right?
And if you don't have a customer, then what do you got? Nothing.
Well, exactly. Again, regardless of whatever industry it is, the customer always comes first, right? Because they're the one paying our bills. And I hate to say it that way because it's like a transactional, but it's very much more than that, because it's more of a mentality of you're like, hey man, if I were that guy walking through that door, how would I want them to treat me? And would I want to have a clean environment? Would I want it to look professional? Would I want the team to look like they're dynamic?
So you're trying to build a relationship rather than have it be transactional or feel robotic and transactional. You're saying, I want you to have an experience. I want you to have a relationship. It doesn't have to be with me as the person working here. It should be with the company and your enjoyment and things that you expect, and you're getting those out of that company.
Well, not to mention though, you build that rapport, then it becomes a trust thing, right?
Yeah.
Because now I only want to deal with Jared. I don't want to deal with anybody else on your team, because Jared's always taking care of me. Jared has always got me the performance that I wanted. Jared is always coming up with ways that I can better make my business work, right?
Yep.
So then it's like you have what they call a return customer, and then you build a relationship over years, right? So then it's like you can always count on those people, and they can always count on you. That's really what you're shooting for when you're dealing with a customer. I know we went a little bit right to the right on the customer treatment, but at the end of the day, I think it applies to every industry, and that's why I think it's important to bring it up.
Exactly.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is how people communicate under pressure. Sometimes during interviews or serious conversations, people react in ways that do not help them. The Sadler method that JB discussed earlier, this system uses 3 simple communication modes: one called parent, one called adult, and one called child. I'm going to break these out just real quick because I think it's important that you know exactly what each one of these is, so you have a better understanding when we go to address these. A parent, this is when someone sounds like a rule maker, a critic, a coach, or a protector. It can be helpful when it is supportive, but harmful when it becomes judgmental. Now we're going to go to an adult. This is the calm, thoughtful part of you. It listens, it asks questions, it uses facts, and it responds instead of reacting. And now we have the child. This is the emotional or reactive part of you. It might show up as fear, defensiveness, or people pleasing, anger, or trying too hard to impress.
Yeah.
Have you heard it? Have you ever heard of any of these, Jay? Is this like your first, like your actual first seeing of this?
I didn't know it was associated to the Sadler method, or maybe I came across this before. But when I heard this part about the parent, adult, and child, I was like, that sounds familiar from something. And I was like, oh yeah, this is really so true. And the child one that one can come out very easily. Just be honest, in anybody, right? You could just be having a bad day, and then just one thing happens after another. Then the child, boom, emotional reaction. You're like, dang it, why did I do that? All right, just a bad day.
Like, especially in an interview, right? Obviously, we want to keep even kiltered, right, throughout the process. But then when it's like you're trying to explain something, you get cut off, or somebody's not letting you speak, or you're trying to represent yourself, but they're not giving you the airtime, and you're trying not to show that frustration, and it becomes very important. But go ahead, JB. We're going to go ahead and address these.
Yeah, and so from the professional side, whether it's actually maintaining your job or interviewing, those professional conversations, the goal is to stay mostly in that adult mode. That means staying calm, listening carefully, and listening is a skill set in itself, and then answering clearly. So you can use a supportive parent mode by being respectful, encouraging, and thoughtful. But the mode to watch out for, like we talked about, is that child mode, because it could accidentally make you react emotionally instead of responding wisely.
I feel like even though I've been doing this stuff for a long time and kind of have that background, I still fall into that child mode no matter how hard I try, because it's hard not to get defensive about stuff that you're passionate about.
We're humans. We have feelings, dude. We're not without error and fault. We have emotion, and that just happens, and it's just being aware of that.
No, absolutely. And then kind of looking at this, what does this look like in practice? What does the child ego state show up? When does it show up, and when is it uninvited, right? And I would say there's never a person that's ever been really super grateful in the sense that they overreacted in any situation emotionally, because generally it's, okay, how can I back the bus back up, put it back in the parking spot? I know I did donuts in the parking lot. I know I got a little crazy here, but you know what I'm saying? I don't think there's ever a person that's like, I'm really glad that I screamed as loud as I could in that argument, in that conference room. I just don't. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah. So to your question, the child ego, that whole thing can show up just like when someone asks you a hard question, and then all of a sudden you feel like you're on the hot seat, you're in the spotlight, and you feel embarrassed. Maybe you're a little defensive or desperate to be liked, depending on the situation. So maybe, for example, you might ramble too much, you might apologize too much, argue, which you want to try to avoid, or shut down. I've had moments where I just shut down, just sitting there, and it feels like hours. It's probably only like a couple of seconds, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, what happened there? But the better response is to pause, breathe, and answer from a calm place. And that pause and that breathing is just your normal breathing. It's like, get a good inhale, a hold, and an exhale, and just relax. And then take that moment and calm yourself and tell yourself, like, no, I know how to answer this. And then just come from that calm place.
It's in an interview, though, this is where my brain immediately goes to. In an interview, I want everybody to like me on that call. I want everybody to just be like, this guy's the greatest thing ever. I want to be like,
Will, you're the greatest thing ever.
I want to be the greatest showman ever. Like when I'm on an interview, I want to be exuberating, amazing energy. I want good vibes. But to your point, though, we've all had a moment in an interview, and I know we're using a lot of this to discuss interviewing, but when we're dealing with the Sadler model, a lot of it is extremely advantageous to the interview process. So that's what we're really magnifying in this conversation. But it's really hard when you don't know an answer. When you feel that hollowness and you're like, your brain immediately goes into scramble mode and you're like, how do I fill the airtime? But going back to your point, it could be just as easy as, all right, I'm going to breathe. I'm going to take a couple seconds and I'm really going to try to answer this question the best I can. And even if I don't know it, I'm going to come up with a conversation that states something like this. You know, that's a great question. And I wonder what made you ask that question? So you can buy yourself a little bit more time.
Yeah.
Or you could say something as simple as, I don't know that right now, but I'd love to learn more about it, right?
Yeah.
So you've got those solutions either way, right, JB?
Or the third one is, if you take that moment, also you might realize, hey, I calmed down and I realize I don't have an answer exactly to that, or maybe 100%, but I know something adjacent that I can help connect the dots and align to it.
Now, the one I'm about to bring up, I've seen countless times over and over in interviews, right? Please don't do this. It happens. You might feel like you need to be smarter than everybody in the room because you feel insecure. That usually does not help. And to be honest, it actually makes things worse.
Yeah.
So I would say too, I feel a lot of times when I've been on interviews, especially technical interviews, I feel like sometimes they're trying to stump the Trump, where it's like they're
Yeah.
asking me more and more complex questions just to see how far they can take it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times it's not really it's not what I'm answering. It's a matter of how I'm addressing the fact that I'm going to come to a stall mark where I don't know the answer and
Yeah.
how I respond. And am I staying cool under pressure?
Mhm.
Because I think that's really a lot of the times, it's not that they're trying to say, I'm smarter than you, or I know all these things and you don't. What they're trying to get to is if you're put in a position and you don't have an answer, how are you going to react? Are you going to stay calm? Are you going to give me a good expression of what you're actually thinking in the sense of, hey, let me get that solution for you. Let me look it up. Give me about 15. I can come back. I'll get this for you. I'll get you that answer. It could be just that easy. Maybe that's what they're really looking for.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with that.
So I guess in essence, strong communication would be a great thing in this particular case, Jay.
Yeah. So it's not about acting perfect. It's about staying grounded. You want to be respectful, relaxed, curious, and focus on having a real conversation instead of trying to win approval. So what this might sound like when you're actually in the room and the interviewer asks, so tell me about a time you made a mistake. We've all done it. So a child's reaction might be
Yes.
me to panic and say, I don't really make mistakes. Well, we make
Yeah,
mistakes. We're human.
definitely. Yeah, they're like, are you infallible?
Yeah. But or to give a long defensive answer, an adult response would be an honest and calm one. So I once waited too long to ask for help on a group project. I learned that communication matters. So now I check in earlier, make sure everyone understands the plan. That answer shows maturity.
Now, and I think this goes back to the adage old question of, can you give me 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses of yourself, right?
Yeah.
And of course, again, this goes back to our earlier thought process of being prepared, right?
Yeah.
Getting those questions ahead of time so that once they come out, it's such muscle memory in the sense of that you don't even have to think about it. If somebody asked me that immediately, I'd be like, the first thing, because I've done this so many times, the first thing I would say is the thing that I would improve is my willingness to not want to give up. I go too long for too hard and I refuse to give up on something. Now, granted, it might not be the best answer, but it does address the question and it does it in a positive manner, right? So again, to the point though, it goes back to your point is just having a response and knowing how to answer it calmly and in a respectful manner.
Yeah. And just showing the interviewer that you can learn, right? And
Right.
No one expects, especially somebody starting out getting into the workforce, they don't expect you to have that answer yet. But
Yeah.
they might, if they just calm themselves, go, oh, I did this over here in this sports or something like that, volunteer aspect. But that calm honesty is really, that's powerful. You don't have to have that perfect answer. I know I haven't had a perfect answer all the time. I know you've had some on yours. You've explained, I'm like, geez, I would have never thought to say that. But you need to answer that. The answer that sounds real, responsible, and thoughtful. Those areas, something that's real from your experience, responsible because you're using the adult mindset, and thoughtful going, oh, you actually put depth into the answer. Not yes. Yes, because X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. You see these in interview horror stories. They're like, so are you a good worker? And somebody just says, yes.
Everyone's a good worker.
Yes, I'm a great worker. Can you tell me more about that? I'm good at working. You're like, okay, that's good. That's good. All right. Can you tell me what kind of work you do? I do hard work. Okay. All right. Excellent. That's fantastic, man.
Right.
But going back, I know we went to the right on that, but I would say going back to JV's point earlier, the answer that he gave was it shows that the interview that you can learn. Again, nobody expects a college student to have everything figured out. Trust me, they don't. But they do want to see that you can own a mistake and you can improve. So I think the underlying essence of that message is take accountability, take ownership. They love nothing more to see that. So I give you a complex question or answer, and I want you to be able to take accountability for it and show that you're going to see it to the end or follow it through. Right, JB?
Yep. So now that we covered all that, just about your attitudes and your ability to control your behavior, the different egos and all that. So what does that even make sense, right? So there's tools. So the Sadler method has a tool called Submarine, and they look at it as
man. The submarine gets me every time.
I know. I'm like,
Go
Yellow Submarine, Beatles.
Go ahead, go ahead.
They look at that as a map for a conversation. So instead of walking into the interview or some networking event and hoping it goes well, this map helps you move through the conversation step by step. Again, remember, this is based on sales. You're selling yourself to get a job. So keep that in mind. So number one, this is the biggest one, bonding and rapport. So you got to start by making a comfortable connection by being friendly, respectful, and easy to talk to. And the next one would be you want an upfront contract. So basically, you're going to make sure that anyone you're engaging with understands why you're talking to them. That's always a good thing. How long it take? I just need 5-10 minutes of your time. And what should happen by the end of it? And hey, after that, I'd like to just exchange our contact information. It's really that simple. And then the pain points. So find out what that problem that person or the organization is trying to solve with the role that you're trying to get into. In an interview, this means learning why the job or the opportunity actually exists. Was it somebody departed? Was it expansion? Was it an audit demand? Also, budget. Understand the resources involved. Now, they're not going to give you a lot of that detail, but it's worth the ask. So for a student, this can mean time, effort, the salary range, scholarships, transportation, or what support is available. So if you are applying for something, what's the effort you have to put in, your budget effort, your time budget, things like that, right? So budget isn't just always monetary. So that next one would be decision. Learn how the decision will be made for who all is involved. Make sure you understand who is involved in that decision making, what they're looking for, and when you should expect to hear back. So that should be somewhere at the worst case scenario, the end of the interview. If you can squeeze that in to understand all the different levels you have to go through and who's going to be involved in the timelines, that's always one thing that some people miss, but make sure you put that in there about the decision. So fulfillment, which shows your skills, your experience, your attitude, and your preparation match what they need, aka the right fit. Yes. And lastly, post-sell. Follow up with the conversation. If it's a simple call, mostly likely an email, send a thank you message, confirm next steps, and remind them why you're interested. And I started doing that, and I've had actually good results. I wasn't doing that at the beginning because I just, for some reason, didn't think about it.
Yes.
And then I just started doing it, and things improved overall when I started following that very post-sales, that last step.
Yeah, I'm looking at all these steps, and it's obviously you don't have to do these in order per se. Mm-hmm. But I definitely think one of the things that I love about it is it's giving you a methodology really to approach, right? Now, one of the two areas that I always like to look at is the pain, right? Now, the reason why I bring up pain in this particular case is because I feel like if you can get them, because they're going to be asking you questions about technologies, and they're going to explain to you certain processes or problems that they're having within their current organization and why they're looking to fill those roles. This is an absolute gold mine for you, because in essence, if you're able to quickly think and adjust during the interview to approach that pain area, so they're like, hey man, here's the problem that we have. We're trying to migrate to a cloud situation. We don't know anybody in our current team right now that has the skills to help us migrate over to a cloud organization. In your mind, you should immediately, if you have those skills or those talents, then it becomes, well, hey man, I've worked with Azure, I've worked with AWS, I've done full-blown migrations. I know how painful they can be, especially for an enterprise level, right? So you immediately address that pain right out the gate, right? So then it's like, oh, wait a minute, this guy's not only qualified, and not only does he have the certifications, but he's already trying to fix our problems. How golden is that? And then also, I love that second one, which is the upfront contract, right? Because I've actually been on interviews where people didn't know the role that they were hiring before. So I'm like, hey, I'm here for this role. And they're like, oh, you're here for the architect position? I'm like, no, I'm here for the cybersecurity engineer position. And they're like, oh, my apologies. They didn't tell me which one, right? So that totally changes the navigation of that. But to their point, they're interviewing countless people, bro.
Yeah.
Literally. So they could be, on any given week, they could be interviewing 20 people. So losing that sight of what position they're hiring for, if they're hiring for multiple roles, is really easy. Yeah. So setting up that upfront contract out of the gate, saying, hey, I'm here for this position. These are my qualifications, and this is what we're going to cover today, shows you have leadership skills, but it also shows them that you're motivated from my standpoint, right? Yeah. And then lastly, on that number 7, that post-sell, JB, to your point, always, regardless of however the conversation went, try to network with that person, get them added on LinkedIn, and definitely always thank them or thank the recruiter as well by sending a quick follow-up email immediately upon exiting that interview, just to thank them for their time, right?
Yes, and that's the huge key to that, is thanking them for their time and not trying to be like pushy or force them into a decision on the email. That's a bad move. Only being grateful and thankful for their time. Yes. Appreciate the detail that they provided, help give you clarity. That's what you're doing, nothing more, nothing less. And then if there are follow-ups that were mentioned saying, yeah, looking forward to hearing back on when we can schedule X, Y, and Z for whatever the next step is.
Yes, no, absolutely. Hey, can you explain how this works in a job interview? Because students may not think of words like budget or decision. I know you touched on budget just a little bit earlier, having anything to do with them getting hired.
Yes. First, build rapport by being polite, prepared, and present. Then set expectations by understanding what the interview will cover and what the next steps are. So if you can get that out of them, sometimes the HR people, the recruiters, they'll give you some of the basic information, what to expect on at least the first one or maybe the second one. So ask what that interview will cover and what those steps are. So you do not have to act like the interviewer is above you at all, but be respectful. Remember, this is a two-way conversation, and people forget that. You're learning about them, and they're learning about you. So it is definitely a two-way conversation, and always feel free to inquire with them and have questions ready for them.
Yes, I love that point that you just made. It is a two-way conversation. We're not subservient to the people that we're trying to get hired by, right?
Correct.
What we're trying to do is we want to make sure we're a good fit just as much as they want to make sure we're a good fit, right?
Yeah,
How do we
exactly.
do that? We ask a lot of questions, and we try to determine, is the culture a good fit? Is the role a good fit? Are the hours good? Is the team going to be a good fit? Is there a team at all? Am I going to be an individual contributor? Am I going to be a project manager? These are all pinpointed questions that you have to come in prepared to ask, right? And I think just knowing that is that just having that mindset, because I feel like a lot of times people just let them ask all the questions. And then when at the end of the interview, they're like, do you have any questions? And they just blank. They're like, no, I don't have any questions. And then immediately upon hanging up the phone, they had a list of questions that were sitting right next to their phone that they didn't ask. And then of course they talk to their spouse, and their spouse says, bro, did you ask him that question? And they're like, no. And they're like, oh, bro, why didn't you ask him that question, right?
Yeah.
So either way, and that's where that becomes the problem part, right? This is where
Yeah.
many people miss the point. They only ask about themselves instead of learning what the employer actually needs, right?
Exactly. Your resume obviously is important, but it's not the whole conversation. The resume is that moment to get you into that door to have this conversation. The employer wants to know if you can actually help them solve a problem, and that problem could be as simple as just resource and headcount. Can you actually fit in and do this job and help us move forward with whatever our initiatives are, right? Maybe they need someone dependable, organized, good with customers, quick to learn, or able to work on a team. Just really depends on what you're applying for. But your job in that interview is to understand what they need and then explain to them how you can help.
So let's say a person is interviewing at a local restaurant. If they only say, I need a job, that does not tell the manager much. But if they ask, what makes someone successful on your team, or what are the busiest times when you need the most help?
Yeah.
They learn what the manager actually needs, right? That goes back to my point earlier, is having those pinpointed questions prepared ahead of time. So it looks like not only that, but it also looks like you're engaged in the actual position and you're truly interested in what it has to offer.
Correct. So being able to connect that answer to the need. So if you're a student, I know you're like, oh, I don't have the experience. Yes, you do. You went through school, you're continuing school, you've done extracurricular items, find the right words on what you did and your experiences, and then connect that to their need. So again, if you're at a restaurant and say you did, I think a lot of the sports, they do the car washes and things like that, right? So we help build revenue for this need, and we went and marketed and things like that. Find ways to use that to your advantage and pin that to their need. So if you're in a restaurant and you're serving, you have to upsell people. Hey, do you want another drink? Do you want dessert?
Yes.
All these types of things. So you're having to market and sell those things. So you just connect all that. So the interviewers, for example, they might say, I know weekends get busy and I'm comfortable staying calm when there's a rush, or I'm sorry, the student, right? So in school, I helped organize events where we had to solve problems fast. So there you go. So if they have a rush, you know how to solve problems fast. You're connecting the need. They're busy. You know how to live and work in that environment. So now the student is not just listing qualities. They are connecting their experience to that problem.
Absolutely. And I think that makes students stand out because most people answer from their own point of view only.
Yeah.
So they say things like, here's why I want the job. A stronger answer adds, here is how I can help you, right? That right there is a very, I would say, very powerful statement, right? Because now not only are you taking a pain or a problem or a concern that the employer has, and you're saying directly, this is how I can address that and make it better for you, right? Now, how powerful is that in an interview, JB?
The fundamental shift, right? It puts it back into your seat. It turns that conversation from begging for a chance into
Yeah,
showing that you understand the situation, that which can be useful. Hey, I is it empathetic? I might have that one wrong. But you
yeah,
understand,
yeah.
like, hey, I understand you have this type of scenario in this work environment. I'm just not coming in blind because I need a job. I'm coming in knowing, hey, I've been in this type of situation and I know how to help you with your need.
Like that's the thing too. I always find unique is that there's these opportunities, right, that are constantly being. This goes back to our technique. This goes back to our attitude. This goes back to our approach, right? It's like, are you seeing opportunities during these interviews by the words that these employers are giving you, and are you using those to exhibit what kind of professionalism you can bring to their culture, right? And I think a lot of times, instead of coming off the interview going, "Damn, dude, I fully bombed that interview," what you should be saying is, nah, man, I came off that interview and I just learned 5 ways that I can improve my next interview, right?
Yep.
Because that's really the mindset. Yeah, that. And again, I'm not going to say it's easy because yes, I can speak very clearly on this point. I have bombed interviews, come
Yeah.
off, and I was like, why was I even in that room? But I just heard a fantastic quote from Barack Obama, where he's, when you go to a meeting, be the voice in the room and know that you belong there. And I
That's
love
awesome.
that quote
That's a great
because
quote.
it's like when I'm in an interview, I need to make everybody in that room know why I'm there,
Yeah.
right? I belong there because if I
Hmm.
didn't, I wouldn't be invited to be there. So how do I prove that I
Yep.
need to be there? I show these guys a fundamental change in the way they think and what I can provide, right?
Great
That's
point.
why I'm in that room. So I belong here. That's why I'm here. Do you know what I mean?
Nice. Yep.
No, I love that, bro. I love that so much. I just heard that like about a week ago, and I was like, dang, that is such an awesome quote, bro.
Very
Because
cool.
now it's like everywhere I go, I'm like, no, I'm here for a reason. I'm here because I belong here. That's
Yep.
why. And I know we went a little bit to the right, but to the point being saying is just understanding that you asking the right questions at the right time in the interview can change the fundamental of the entire interview, right?
Yep.
But also providing a value of what you can offer also does that same value change, right?
Hmm.
So we brought up pain earlier, right? And one of the things in the Sandler model that they bring up is it's called the pain funnel, right? This sounds intense, but it really just means asking better questions so you understand the real problem behind an opportunity.
Sorry, the pain funnel makes you laugh, dude. I'm
No, it
sorry.
is.
I'm just
No,
sitting
no,
here going, like,
no,
I don't want a pain funnel. That I don't want that. Please no.
no. No,
I'm sorry. I'm just like, they got to
no, I
reword
don't.
it. But
I don't think there's anybody, employer or interviewer, that wants a pain funnel, dude. I honestly don't think anybody wants that. But needless
yeah,
to say, the reason why they bring it up, right? We have to put a name on it. We have to label it.
yeah,
It is a process. Go ahead, JV. Jump in
yeah.
there, man. Go ahead. Jump into the pain funnel. Go ahead, bro.
All right. Bring it back. Bring it back. All right. So basically, what that means is what my understanding is like if you stay on the surface, aka generic, the conversation stays basic as well.
Right.
So, like we just touched on, is better questions help you understand what the person really needs.
Mhm.
So, these specific questions you can modify as needed. Is can you tell me more about that? Very
Mhm.
inquisitive, very simple. Can you give me an example? Depending on the scenario, they can't give you all the details, but they should be able to give you enough to expand on it to help you understand. And then how long has this been a problem? That's actually a really good one
I
because
like
now you
that.
kind of know exactly what you're getting into. You're like, man, it's been 10 years. You haven't figured it out. Well, what the heck am I going to do? But maybe you do have the answer. Don't know. All right. And then other ones you can do are what have you tried to solve it and did anything work? Like
Yes.
maybe it's phased issues. Hey, we did this and it only fixes one part and we have all these other parts. And you're like, okay. And then maybe that opens up the door to go, oh, I actually had experience in this area and maybe did this and that might fix it for you. So other ones are what do you think the financial impact? And that's huge. That's showing business alignment and then to the initiatives and awareness about their financial budgets. And then how is this affecting you personally? So again, that could be we're working extra hours, we're stressed out, things like that. So you can understand, oh man, if I get into this role, I need to have a better impact so we can mitigate them having to do this extra overtime and we're spending all these hours. We can do something to improve this process, to scale it and improve it, to bring down those requirements of whatever the hours are, whatever it is.
Now, I love all of these questions because they're very open ended. but they also, like to your point, there are a large amount of, if you took them at, and you said, like, you made them just singular statements in the sense of, give me an example. This is a problem. Did you try to solve this? These are very direct questions that they can't not answer with deep meaning or engagement, right? Which I love, right? And I honestly think when I'm looking at these lists, I'm almost like, hey, man, this is day one. Like I'm coming into an organization. These are fantastic questions to have preloaded right out the gate, right? Because if you go to your manager and you already have these like cocked in hand, right? You're like, damn, this is fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and shoot these out, right? Like these are good questions, man. And I think
a great point, not only at the interview, because again, there's only so much information you can get it, but when you land the job, use these same questions.
Yes, that's exactly, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm like, because as a manager, you come in asking these immediately right out the gate. I'm like, dang, man, this guy, he wants to get running. Like he means business. He's ready to dance, right? The last question that you stated, though, this one moves the entire conversation from facts to real impact, right? How is this affecting you personally? This one helps you understand why the issue matters to this person, not just the organization. So now you're taking it from personal to culture, right? Culture to personal, right? Fantastic transition there.
Yeah. And another helpful skill is answering a question with a thoughtful question. This is not just avoiding the question. That's not what we're saying. It's about making sure you understand what they are really asking before you answer. So if someone asks, can you handle pressure? You might say, that is a good question. What kind of pressure usually comes with this role? Does that make more sense? Because it's like everybody's perspective is a little bit different. And he might or she might have a perspective that pressure is, oh, we have rush hour from this window. You're like, but that's a common thing. If it's every day, that's just a pattern. So that's really what we can manage and work through it. And then you can answer your question, say, if it's every day, we should know if we should maybe start preparing certain things sooner in preparation of that extra load that comes during that window, right? Things like that. So it's going to help you be more thoughtful in how you respond.
Yeah, and I'd say also don't stop at that first answer. Sometimes the first answer is polite or general. If you ask a follow-on question or two, you often get a clearer and more honest answer. So feel free to dig in a little deeper. Go for additional questions and try to really get to the core of the problem.
Yeah, better questioning would look something like this. So club sponsor says, we need help planning the fundraiser. A surface response would be, okay, I can help. We've all seen that. Maybe you've all done it. But to actually get deeper into this is the response that should be something along what part of the fundraiser has been the hardest so far. And if they say getting people to show up, you can ask, what have you already tried? So that's what I'm saying. What part of it is that they need help with, and where's the conflicts and where's the issues at? Now you understand the real challenge, and you can offer better ideas instead of just guessing.
But you could apply this anywhere, though. That same skill would apply in the class too. If a teacher says your essay needs stronger evidence, you might feel embarrassed, or you could just ask, can you show me one place where the evidence is weak? So now you're not only asking, hey, is the essay weak? You're saying, where is it weak? And now you're saying, show me the exact area that needs to be improved, right? And if you apply this into a job, they're like, hey, man, this project is 80%. Why is it only 80%? Give me your quantification to get to that 80% number. Why isn't it at 90? Or what can I do to get it to 90 or even to 100? Now you're building that rapport, plus you're following on, right?
Yeah, and it's also a confidence builder. So when you're asking these good questions, you're not just going to sit there and hope someone approves of you, or you're not even going to second guess yourself like, oh, did I answer correctly? Because you're participating in the conversation. So you're guiding the outcome to where you want to by engaging and asking those confident and thoughtful questions.
I'm actually just thinking about like how I would apply this dynamic with all these different types of questions. And the more I look at this, I'm like, man, some of these questions I've never asked. And I'm like, why have I never asked these questions? So my brain is just like, man, I'm actually thinking about writing down that last one, specifically the one in regards to how does this personally make you feel? Because I feel like I have never asked that question. And I really would be interested to feel like, what if they were just like, yeah, man, this causes me to stress out. I literally have IBS because of it, or I have health conditions. My home life is garbage. Now I know I'm going to the extreme here, but at the end of the day, but at that point, then it's like, okay, immediately in my brain, I'm like, if somebody came back with a response like that, I'd be like, all right, man, how do we take some of this stress off of you? How do we distribute it amongst the team? I've had situations like this in the military where I had soldiers that were burnt out that I had to rotate in and out. Now I'm providing that solution, right? Yeah. Now I'm giving an example. Now I'm actually attending to this personal issue, right?
Mhm.
So and immediately it brings the stress down for that person immediately because they're like, oh, I have a problem solver on my team now that can help me create these solutions, right?
Yep.
I would also say good questions can actually make you look more prepared because they show you are paying attention, right?
Yeah.
Sounds simple in premise, right? But on the same side, it's like, is this person actually listening to my responses during this interview? And if they are, what are they drawing out of what I'm saying, right? And by repeating it back and also following up, you're showing that you're completely engaged.
So we have all these ideas or theories, I'm sorry, not ideas, but all these ideas matter most when you are taking the actual action. So the Sandler method uses two helpful terms: pay time and no pay time. For people that are in college or, I guess high school too as well, pay time means activities that move you closer to an opportunity. No pay time means activities that feel busy but do not really move things forward.
Can you do me a favor? Can you explain the difference for people who are looking for jobs, internships, scholarships, or even future career opportunities, what that looks like?
No pay time is spending hours changing fonts on your resume. What good does that do? Keep one
Right.
standard font, let it be. Scrolling job sites without applying. So just don't death scroll anything, whether on your phone, on a social platform, or just jobs. Be focused and intentful on what you're trying to apply for and search specifically for those instead of just scrolling through and hoping you find something. Organizing your files instead of talking to people, you're going to get more out of engagement. That's what this is kind of getting at. So pay time is reaching out to a teacher, a coach, a mentor, an employer, a family friend, or a former supervisor. It's sending that email, making a call, asking questions, practicing, applying, and following up. The engagement of finding that job or getting results or whatever it is, selling yourself, essentially.
I got that. So in essence, what you're saying is a good student challenge would be something like this. For 1 week, track your pay time and your no pay time. If you spend 45 minutes making your resume look perfect, but never send it anywhere, that is probably no time. If you spend 15 minutes emailing a coach, a counselor, a manager, or a mentor, that is pay time because it creates a real connection.
And that is the habit that you want to build. Once you can actually see how much of your week was pay time versus no pay time, the next real question you have to ask is what you are working toward, right? Where's the budgeting? That's where that comes in, your time budgeting, matching no pay versus pay.
Yes, absolutely. Right. It seems very basic in its approach. For me, this is a no brainer because obviously when you're in a family and you're helping out your family, monetary funds become very important. Or if you have anybody that's depending, any kind of dependencies that you have financially speaking, it's understanding basic budgeting. Think about a phone bill, gas, food, school costs, savings, or even transportation. When you know what money you actually need is this to me is very basic in its approach, but I think a lot of times when people are looking at roles, they don't take into consideration the hidden costs of just living, right?
Yeah.
So you have to make really smart choices about jobs, pay, and future plans based off of your not only your current needs, but your future needs, right?
Yeah. I had to do that recently too. And for example, if you want a part-time job, don't just sit there, like you said, don't say how much does it pay. I caught myself recently doing just that. And then I realized I was wrong. And you have to start asking yourself what you need the money for. That's a better perspective. Are you going to save for a car? How much needs to be allocated per month for saving towards that? Are you covering your gas for your vehicle, helping with school expenses, saving for college or trade school? When you understand your goal, you can make better choices about how many hours you can actually work, what kind of job fits your schedule, and whether the opportunity is worth your time. And one little side note, what if you just like to go out with friends once a week? That's
Yes.
part of your budget. Don't forget about
Yep.
that, right? You still have to have a social life. Think about all that,
100%.
you know?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And if you don't know your goal yet, that's okay. Just start out small. Make your goal so it's simple to learn and what kind of work you like. Build confidence talking to adults and prove to yourself that you can follow through on a commitment.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? Early jobs and opportunities are not only about the money. Obviously, we need money to pay bills, but they are also practice in how you engage, how you are as a professional. You're learning how to manage your time, how to communicate with people, handle responsibility, and then understand what kind of environments help you do your best.
Jay, I feel like we covered a lot today, bro. We did. Do you feel like that? I feel like we put a lot on our audience today.
And it's funny because I literally just sent my stepson to college and he's like, man, this is really good. And hopefully he listens to it. But he actually landed a job already, luckily. But maybe he can have his friends listen to it. We'll have this on the website and they can pull it down and get some guidance on it.
It's like when we have listeners from in other countries that find us magically and they're like, I loved your show. And you're like, I didn't even, but okay, I'll take whatever kudos we get. I'll take them. Going back to my point though, we covered a lot today. Obviously we covered mindset, confidence, communications, interviews, asking better questions, networking, and budgeting. The big idea is that success gets easier when you have a system instead of guessing your way through it.
Yeah, and if you can remember one thing, remember this. It's not magic. Wish it was, but it's not. So it comes from combining your mindset, your actions, and the skills. So you do not have to control everything. And that's just a lot of work trying to do that anyways, but you can control how you prepare. You can control how you communicate, your attitude, and how to respond to things when they do not go your way.
I will say this, going out to our college students, if you are listening, do not wait until everything feels perfect.
Yeah.
Pick one next step, one better question, send one message, practice one answer, or talk to one person who can help you.
And it's all those small steps that count. You can't be doing big leaps. That's just not going to get you where you need to go. The goal is not to become perfect overnight. The goal is to become more prepared, more aware, and more willing to take action.
Well, Jay, I'm going to say that to wrap, but I know all of our listeners, and even the ones that are listening for the first time, they want to know where they can find us. So we are at Broken Handle Pod on all social platforms, and check out more at thebrokenhandle.com. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep taking your next step. We will see you next week. This is what we know.
What you do with it is up to you.
Quick legal. The Broken Handle hosts speak personally, not for any current or past employer. Guests share their own views. Their appearance is not an endorsement of their services or business. Commentary on companies, recruiters, and hiring practices is opinion. Nothing here from hosts or guests is career, legal, financial, or medical advice. Consult a licensed professional for those matters.